I'm Eric Newton, and this is The Together Show. We all know relationships take work, but what is that work, and how do we do it? As a former divorce lawyer, I've watched thousands of couples break up firsthand. Having seen the worst in relationships, I decided to try to help couples stay together. So on this show, we talk to real couples and find out what love really looks like.
Love can overcome any difference, separation, or anything that society or religion or ignorance can bring on.
Today's episode is sponsored by Knock Knock, the makers of the unbearably adorable and exceptionally useful Fill in the Love collection of fill-in-the-blank journals, postcards, and letters that you can use to express your love to anyone. Send some love with Fill in the Love from Knock Knock. Welcome to the show, everybody. Thanks for listening. Today's episode is about two issues. First, we're looking at the ever-tricky dynamic of both living and working together as a romantic couple. Now, we've seen this question from several angles on the show before, and every couple works it out differently. Sammy and Sandeep, our guests today, have their own unique approach, and they manage it very gracefully. The second issue, and the reason that we're posting this episode on Thanksgiving week, is family dynamics around sexuality. Sammy and Sandeep are a gay couple, and both of them initially faced immense pressure from their families to deny their sexuality. But each of these two, in their own ways, stood for both truth and for family. And what happened is astounding. These two have a lot to teach us all about unconditional love. Now, we're beginning our interview at a point where Sammy and Sandeep are explaining how they met online, and Sandeep is telling us about the challenges that he faced realizing that he was a gay man in India and how that led to his choice to move to the U.S. So with that, let's go to our interview with Sammy and Sandeep.
I had just gotten out of a 7-year relationship with the wrong person.
Wow.
And I was a little sexually frustrated, to say the least. And I went to Craigslist to find an outlet. And I was very clear on what it was going to be and how it was going to show up.
It was just going to be a hookup?
It was just going to be a hookup.
At 2:30 in the morning.
So, this was like an instant kind of thing. Yeah,
Yes.
This was before Grindr.
It was before Grindr, but it took 2.5 hours leading up to it to get to that point of connecting.
What you mean, just like interacting back and forth on the email or something?
So I was painting my apartment. We both lived in Daly City. He was literally like maybe 5 blocks away from where I used to live. And I was painting my apartment. My uncle was coming from New York to see me after I had just come out to my parents, had gone back to India, had come out to them. And it was one of the most hardest thing I had ever done. But I knew I had to do it. So I had come back. I had heard every kind of thing. They would let me go and they would disown me and all kind of stuff.
That's what they said when you were there visiting them?
Yes, actually. Yes.
Did you? I know this is a tangent from the story, but did you believe them? Because you're smiling when you say it now, so it's like I'm wondering if at the time it was traumatic or if you just knew this was part of the process.
No, because I had considered all of that. That may happen, and I knew that this is more important to me to live my life the way I wanted to live.
Yeah.
And the reason for me to come to America was to do that. And I had moved here in 2001, and it took me 7 years to come to that point. So even though I had come here to be free, but I was in my own manacles. Yeah. So I literally wanted to, break free.
Yeah.
And the part of that was to go to India and tell them. And I thought they needed to know who their son was. Because that 1% chance that they said, we love you and we accept you, I wanted to, explore that.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. And I had come back, and after that, the phone calls came like, why don't you die? You brought shame, all kind of stuff you could hear. But anyway, so my uncle who lives in New York calls me randomly and says, I'm coming over with his family. And I used to live in an apartment with a roommate. So I said, okay, well,
wait, he's coming from New York?
Yes, my uncle.
To Daly City to see you?
Yes.
With the whole family?
With the whole family.
To the apartment?
So yeah, it was my uncle, aunt, and his son. He only has one son, 3 people. That's very common for Indian families to just come over.
Okay.
But he hadn't been here for 7-8 years. When I needed help, he wasn't there. But now he was suddenly coming, so I assume my dad must have discussed it with him. And I was painting the apartment by myself. And at 2:30 or so, I got tired. I'm like, well, I need some relaxation. So I put up an ad. And it's like many people responded, but I think his response was he sent his website to me or something with real estate.
I had been scoping out the website for many hours at that point. And
Your own website?
Yeah, I was pretty vanilla and green to the whole process. The whole process of online dating or hooking up, whatever you want to call it. So I was a little honest. But I had gone to bed. It was a little after 12 o'clock.
Uh-huh.
And I had actually gone to bed after 2 hours of unsuccessful hunting on the web. And something just told me, get up and try one more time. And so I went in, and as soon as I logged on, his ad had just posted. And so we had started this dialogue, and we'd gone on for quite some time. And finally it was like, well, are we going to do this or not? And so I proceeded to his house at 2:30 in the morning and showed up.
Before he did that, he sent me I asked him for a photograph, so he sent me a link to his website as a realtor. I'm like, what is this guy doing?
I also sent him a picture.
There goes the anonymity.
I also sent it. I know I'm lucky to be alive after my internet extravagant.
And I thought he was trying to sell me a house. I'm like, at 2:30 in the morning.
Well, I actually invited him over to get in the hot tub. And he thought I wanted to take a bath with him because
I didn't know hot tub. I thought bathtub, and it's called jacuzzi. I knew jacuzzi, but I didn't know the hot tub situation.
Oh, right.
So I'm like, this is kind of creepy. He wants me to come to his house.
Well, I mean, it's a hookup, right?
Yeah.
You were doing a hookup anyway, so why was that any different?
I was in Wisconsin for 2 years, and I knew about Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh.
So my rule was not to go to anybody's house.
Yeah.
Because if I was in Wisconsin going to people's home, I would have been dead by now if Jeffrey Dahmer was there. So I knew that I'm not going anywhere. If someone wants to come, they can come here.
Yeah. It is safer.
I wasn't going.
And hot tubs aren't a thing in India.
Right.
They're a thing here, right? I thought.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't interested. So I made my way over, and when he opened the door, he was actually who he said he was. Very good looking. And I was like, wow. And so we went in and we had our connection, and while we were connecting, I was like, this guy probably has a wife. He's got a fiance, something. She must be out of town.
Yeah, there's got to be something wrong with this guy, right?
Something. And I just got out of a relationship for the first time in my life, I was not looking. I'm a serial monogamous relationship person. Mm-hmm. So my whole life since I was 15, I was looking for my husband. I was looking for that person that I was going to share the rest of my life with. And life doesn't always work like that because we have to learn lessons and prepare ourselves to be ready for that person. But I've always been told that when you're not looking is when you'll find it.
Yeah.
And I was just at a point after being in several relationships with the wrong person, but getting the same results, just finally saying I am enough, and I'm happy with that. So that's where I was in my life.
You're happy being single.
I was happy. Well, I just became single. And so when Sandeep and I had met, I was happy that he lived nearby, and I wanted to hang out again, but not just for that. So I was like, I invited him to dinner a couple times, and he completely blew me off.
After the hookup?
Yep.
But my uncle was coming. He didn't know that part.
Oh, right. Of course.
Yeah. So he kept asking me, can you come? And I was like, I just couldn't even, because there was so much going on in my life. I wasn't thinking that this is what I need to do because I was, there was other things happening in my life. So going back to that is, now we are sitting together here. If I hadn't come out openly to my family, one of his things was to be in a relationship with someone, the person had to be out.
Yeah, of course.
And that had just happened literally 2 weeks before I had met him. I had just come out.
You must have been dealing with so much anxiety.
I did.
Right?
Yes, I did.
I mean, were you able to pick up on that, Sammy?
Because he blew me off for 2 weeks. So
he didn't even tell you.
Well, and I found myself falling back into the trap of, here I am again looking for a relationship. So I completely backed off. And 3 weeks, I think about 3 weeks passed, and I get a call from him or a text message. He called, and I didn't pick up because my girlfriend's like, don't cave in, make him wait. So he called and left a message and said, if that invitation to your house is still open for dinner, I would love to take you up on it. And so he left a message, and I called my girlfriend, and she's like, don't call him back. Play the game. I'm not a game player.
Ugh, it feels so awkward to play that game.
It does. So I'm a straightforward person. So I called him back, and he came over for dinner that night, and he showed up with roses, and he was in a
That's really
suit,
sweet.
and he had a bottle of champagne, which we still have the bottle, and all of the judgments and things that I had projected on him as a person was completely wrong.
Right.
And so to be able to have dinner that night, we ended up staying up all night talking all night. And so he was able to come out and tell me his story. And I grew up Pentecostal and came through a very strong experience through coming out at the age of 15.
You came out at 15.
At 15.
In a Pentecostal. Wow. That's a story. You should probably briefly tell that story.
Well, back in Indiana, I'm from Indiana. I'm the eldest grandson of a very prominent Pentecostal evangelist who started many churches in the Midwest. And actually, one of the champion reasons for moving to Bloomington, Indiana was the Alfred Kinsey Institute. That was the Sex Institute at IU.
Yeah, the Sex Research.
And his finds on all of that. So that was,
Wait. Your grandfather, the Pentecostal minister, wanted to move to Bloomington for Kinsey?
He took over a church that was fighting against morals and, all of the things that Kinsey was coming out and talking about. Sin, homosexuality, and promiscuity, and, all those things are sexual sins. And most people don't know Bloomington, Indiana was a breeding ground for ideas and different people from all different types of industry kind of go there to do that. My grandfather took over a church that was fighting that very thing. So to be the eldest grandson that was supposed to be a preacher, to come out at 15 and starting the first gay, lesbian, bisexual education group in the state of Indiana with the help of Indiana University's LGBT group, that was a huge slap in their face. So
what did they do? Did they try to convince you that you weren't gay?
Well, the devil had taken over, and I was a very strong person. And really what propelled me to do that was one of my friends in high school committed suicide on spring break because she couldn't be herself, and so she hung herself.
Was she gay?
She was a lesbian.
She was lesbian.
And so she couldn't come out, and so she left a letter for her mother and father, who were loving, open people that would have embraced her. Yeah. But she, being from a small town in Indiana with the bigotry and the closed-mindedness that was then and still is now was too much for her. And so she took her life. So that propelled me to be very strong and say, that's not going to be my life. And if I can help be a witness or an example to somebody else to know that they're normal and they are who they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And to love themselves. That was my mission, at 15, 16.
It's a lot of self-awareness at that age. That's really unusual.
Well, I was blessed in a trip to Hawaii when I was 15 years old, where I just felt...
and he was sent to Hawaii to be cured of his sin of homosexuality. Mm. But that ended up changing his life, I've been told.
Yeah, when you live a love-based life, and our philosophy, my philosophy, is always trying to live in love and be in a place of love, and so everything you do comes from a place of loving and empowering and seeing everyone as equals and seeing everybody on the same page of things. And understanding that in our life, we choose different things to learn, and we have different missions in life. And so I felt early on in my life, I was brought to the earth, and my mission is to teach love for those I touch and those that are around me. And my mission, I guess, told by my aunt and uncle, were your mission for our family was to, teach them love, no matter how you are. Because some people, unconditional love is not saying, I will love you if you show up the way I want you to.
Right.
Unconditional love is saying, I will love you no matter how you show up.
So your aunt and uncle were hip to homosexuality?
They were Pentecostal missionaries into Hawaii in the islands in the early 70s. And the ohana energy and love vibe of the Hawaiian islands and the native Hawaiian people really took them on a spiritual path that took them completely away from religion and doctrine and control.
So you went to visit. You were sent to see them.
I was sent to see them.
And just might I add, because there are stories that this couple, his aunt and uncle, were abducted by UFO as well. Yeah, that's just a side note.
Whole other podcast.
No. We because my aunt and uncle came from such a strong conservative background in Indiana and moved to Hawaii to carry on the Pentecostal faith, and then jumped off a cliff of spirituality, craziness from my family's perspective, and went down this path of love. It just rattled the whole family. But because of them and because of their deep connection to the universe and to the planet, and those that have not been to Hawaii, it's hard to understand. But if you've been to Hawaii and you've been to real Hawaii, not Waikiki Beach, but you've been to real Hawaii and you've been able to connect, you can see there's such a powerful force there. And by being there and connecting with everyone, you can understand we're all connected and we're all one. And so, anyways, not to get off on a tangent, but that's a little bit about my background. Grew up in Bloomington. I ended up moving to New York City, Manhattan, when I was 19 years old, and worked for Eileen Ford. My father and Johnny Cougar Mellencamp were very good friends growing up, and so when I was 12, he married Elaine Irwin, the supermodel. From Paris and New York, and Elaine and I became very close, and she knew early on that, oh my God, this poor kid is so gay. Like, we got to get him out of redneck central. Like, what are we going to do?
So you did have some support. Okay, so that informs the relationship story a little bit. I can understand. So when Sandeep was going through his coming out process and all of the emotional trauma that his family was layering upon him as a result, you were able to give him some perspective, it sounds like.
I don't think we ever discussed that, because I've been always told not to share your problems in a way, but I'm looking back at it now, I've always been raised with a lot of love. So when that love was artificially gone, I had love in my life. There was a 2-week period in between. And I remember...
You mean from Sammy?
From Sammy, yes.
Love from Sammy.
And the first time we met in our hookup on Craigslist, I remember I stood at the door and I asked him, are you comfortable? And he said yes, because my rule was, just because you showed up on my door doesn't mean we're going to have that moment.
Yeah.
If you don't like something, please walk away. You don't owe me anything. But he walked in, and the first thing he said to me was, can we have some music? And I looked into his eyes, because I knew this moment meant something bigger than whatever we're going to do here. And that upbringing and whatever it was coming from the church, I just felt that for him to ask for this moment to have a music at 3 o'clock in the morning, I just loved him, because I'm a big music lover as well. So I felt like even though that love was gone, I had something very special given to me by, a higher power or something. So when love from my family went away for some time, he was there with a lot of love. And the more we got to understand, I'm from India, he's from Indiana. Even that is a little similar, right? When you think about it, our life experiences have been very similar. My father and his grandfather are pretty much the same person. And as we're going in our life together, our lives are, kind of molded at this point of time. But even there's a recent episode of my father, falling sick, and I had to rush, and his mother going through whatever she's going through right now.
Both of your parents are having some trauma right now.
Trauma. And I think in a way that without even discussing it, we kind of understand each other.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a divine power behind us that is kind of gluing us more and more together.
Well, tell me, how did it transition from just a couple of hookups and then a date or two into...
Well, the night we had dinner together and we stayed up all night talking was the first day of the rest of our life, because we've been together pretty much nonstop since that night. And we, 3 months after we met, he had planned a trip to Eastern Europe. And he was going to go on a European vacation for like 3 weeks. And I was like, I'm going with him.
He invited himself over.
I'm going to go. I knew what I knew about him was we enjoyed spending time together. We had so much fun together. We loved shopping together. For the first time, I truly had a friend. We were romantically involved from the beginning, but we were friends. We had this friendship that I was always told that, when you find the perfect one, You guys will be like best friends. It'll be like perfect. And you see that in other relationships.
In some of them.
Some of them.
Some of them.
Some of the ones I actually admire, because I think I do believe friendship is important in a relationship. It's key. One of the key components, I believe. So I think, but when you're in relationships for the wrong reasons, you're not necessarily friends.
Yeah.
You're in it for this reason or that reason. But for Sandeep and I, we were friends from the beginning, and I think we both could be dropped into any situation, any scenario, and be okay with it. We'll roll with the punches of it. And we just complete each other. We do. It was like when we moved into the house, Sandeep moved in to the house I was living in, like 3 months after we met, and it just blossomed. Everything we touch together as a couple blossoms.
It does seem that way with your joint business. But what does that mean when people say that you complete each other? What does that actually mean?
In a way that, there is certain, let me put it in a business perspective. I'm very good at what I do, but I have blinders on. I only see step this, step that. I don't venture out of what is an immediate in front of him. Sammy sees the bigger picture. So when he's marketing, he's very good at that. So I don't have to think about that. I'm only doing what I'm doing. I'm very good at what I do, and it makes it easier for me. He handles the rest of the stuff. So in a way, that is a completion in itself.
Well, you guys have a lot of opportunities to deal with that particular dynamic, because not only are you lovers and live together, but you work together. Now, how much of your work is together? Is it all together? Is 100% of your business crossed over?
I would say it's 80%.
That's 80%, a lot.
80% of the business. But either I'm finishing the home and he's selling it, or he sold the home, I'm finishing it. So basically, we pass the baton to each other.
Oh, right.
So we're not working. So his judgment and his appreciation means a lot to me. But I've learned that I really request him not to come to my projects till the time they're done.
Yes.
Because I want to show him the finished product.
Right.
Because if he walks in and he says something, it just really... I'm a very high energy person, but when he comes in, it just feels like my whole energy shifts.
Yeah.
And I just have learned not to deal with it because it makes me angry. All kind of other things come up that has nothing to do with the project. So it always works. I request him, please come to the project when it's done. And when it's done, he loves it. But if he shows up ever when the project is halfway through, he can't see it. And it becomes, he calls me and I say,
people, that makes a lot of sense how you've created that division there, because people are always asking, how can couples also work together? In fact, we had a listener call in recently and ask if I would please do some shows with couples who work together. So this is perfect timing. And I think the concern that people have about that is, well, if there's a conflict at work, then it's going to affect your love and passion at home. Or if there's conflict at home, then it's going to affect your ability to work. Which must happen with you guys, even though you have set up this baton passing boundaries. But how do you handle that when one conflict?
Because in a way, our work is very clear. His role and responsibilities are very clear than mine. I think it creates a lot of problem when it's no clarity in between. If the two people working, like, we'll give you an example. Our dry cleaner, it's a husband and wife team. They work together for almost 50 years, and I don't think they like each other at all because they're both in the same space, just working at the same time. I don't think there's any clarity.
Yeah.
It's very entertaining when we go see her, and all she talks about how bad her husband is and who's literally listening. It's uncomfortable for us sometimes. So I feel like in any relationship, whether you're husband and wife, father or son, if there is clarity in what you're doing, I think it's helpful for everybody. And he sells the house, and I make it beautiful.
You know what? It's simple. It goes back to trust. When you have complete trust in somebody, then you can actually give them space to do it. And so it's trust, and also having the other person have recognition and the knowledge that they've had the gratification.
That they have value.
That he was validated by other people. He didn't want to take my validation, but now that he's validated by other people, that helped a lot. And then I think for us working together, it's trusting and knowing he's going to get the job done. So I'm actually really standoffish now at this point to get it done. Now, if there's something that I see that he, once the job is done and he hands it over to me, I will speak up. And, things that I really care about now or think that's going to make a big vital difference to the process, I will speak up.
Yeah.
Things that he agrees with me. He's open-minded when it makes sense to him, but when it doesn't, he doesn't move.
No, I don't.
And the things he doesn't move on have actually all been successes. So again, it goes
Conviction.
down to that trust. Now, we've had enough time.
And trust within yourself, because there are sometimes he comes and questions what I've done, and I feel it in my conviction that I'm doing it for the project. I'm not changing it.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And that actually helps. And sometimes, you take the success and you also take the failure sometimes. But touch wood, up till so far, whatever I've felt very strongly about has been appreciated.
Yeah.
So in a way that, your work speaks for itself.
That makes perfect sense to me. I want to turn the conversation back to something that you mentioned before that's really fascinating to me, which is the recovery period from your coming out of the closet to your family. So they were very upset with you, but I know just from side talk when we're not recording that you do seem to have a relationship with them now. Mm-hmm. So you've recovered somehow. I'm really curious about that, and I'm also really curious about how it impacted your relationship with Sammy going through that process. So what happened? How did your parents finally, or your family finally come around?
After I came out to them in 2007, before Sammy, they actually visited me in 2008, my father and mother. And when they showed up, I had not told them that I'm with somebody. So they showed up at our house thinking Sammy was my roommate. And through the process of the stay over a month, they realized that we are not actually roommates, we are actually lovers. And they
Did
really
they stay
really,
with you guys in the house?
They did.
Wow,
They
that
did.
must
In
have
the
been
Daly City house, yes.
so awkward.
It was, you know what? Again, ignorance is bliss. And I, looked at him and what do we do? He said, no, we need to sleep in the same room. And we did. And we had given them our bedroom, but we slept in the same room in the next door. And the first 2-3 days, they didn't care because men sleep together in India. Nobody questions, and they didn't think anything of it. But we had a friend that, there was always some evil characters around you. And her mother-in-law ended up, saying something to my parents. And it was never about what they thought. It's always about what other people will think about them. So till the time it was within the house, they didn't care much. But when they figured out that other people know, it was like, there was literally, Sammy walked in home one day and my mom and dad, we had a round table, or the dining table at the time. And my mom was sitting, my dad was sitting. And Sammy walked in on a massive, what are you doing to us? You're killing us and all of that.
It's one
now,
of those.
they were saying that to you, not to Sammy?
Well, I had walked in on their conversation, and it was really their awareness conversation of who we really were.
Right.
That we weren't just friends. We were more than that.
What did my dad say to you?
I walked in the door, and it was one of those moments when you just wanted to just back out and wish people thought you were invisible.
What did my dad say to you, Mr. Sammy?
He said a lot to me that night.
He said to him, Mr. Sammy, I've been made aware of my...
Oh, yes.
Yeah, what did he say?
It's been brought to my attention the nature of your relationship with my son.
Because he's a lawyer, right?
Yes.
A judge at that.
Today's episode is sponsored by Knock Knock, the makers of the beautifully designed and exceptionally useful Fill in the Love collection of fill-in-the-blank journals, postcards, and letters that you can use to express your love to anyone. Something we hear on the show over and over is how important it is to tell your partner what they mean to you. And you can't do it just once. This is something you've got to work on continually over time, which for some of us, like myself, can be a bit of a challenge. And that's where Knock Knock comes in. Their Fill in the Love collection makes it easy to tell your partner what they mean to you. You just fill in the blanks, and suddenly you've got a super cool and a really well-designed expression of your love. Now, I have to admit that when I first heard of Knock Knock, I was a little skeptical. I was thinking that a fill-in-the-blank gift, maybe it wouldn't feel so genuine, but I have to admit, it turns out not to be a problem. Actually, I'm going to take that paragraph again. I have to admit that when I first heard of Knock Knock, I was a little skeptical. I was thinking that a fill-in-the-blank gift, maybe it wouldn't feel so genuine, but I have to say, it turns out not to be a problem. Basically, they give you just enough to get started, and then they leave all the critical parts open for you to get as honest and, well, as gushy as you want to get. And they're so well designed that you feel good giving these to your partner. So check out their website at knockknockstuff.com. I think you're really going to like their stuff. I do. So send some love with Fill in the Love from Knock Knock.
And I literally felt that I was in his court, but then they were very hurt, and they were all about we wanted. I think their hurt came from the fact that I would not have love and happiness as they had imagined it. I'm not going to have any children. What is this two men going to do together? I think it's all about, they loved me so much that they were really sad that they couldn't see me make this mistake. Because, you do the best that you know. They had never seen a gay relationship. They've never seen anything. Even I had never seen a gay relationship. I mean, we are very lucky that in our generation, we have seen such a growth. I had no role model.
That's a really interesting theme that keeps coming up in our conversation, this idea of you have a fantasy for what life is going to be, and then it's another thing, and the difference between them is where your anger, upset, pain lives, because you have that with regards to the trust issue.
Yes.
And your parents had that with regards to your life.
In a way, I think I grew up in India, and I came here at 27. So you can take a boy out of India, but you can never take India out of the boy. Yeah. And I've made peace with it, right? I'm as Bollywood as they come. So I'm coming from a different culture and planted again. Obviously, there's going to be something inherent contradiction that I live with.
Yeah.
Because coming from it, just to give you an idea, that a widow wears white in India and a bride wears white in America.
Right.
So there's a big contradiction right there. There's a lot of things, small little things in life that I see there's a little bit of inherent contradiction in there. So for me, I think everybody's parents want the best for them.
Yeah.
And to a large degree, a son is a prized possession, and for them to see that the son has not only walked away, because a good son stays with the family like my brother is doing and takes care of the parents.
Right.
And in America, it's opposite. If you're staying in the house, you're a loser.
Yeah,
right.
It's true.
So when I go back, I'm considered a loser sometimes because I walked away from responsibilities. But over here, I'm like, we've done good. We are building something. I think to a large degree, you asked me a question like, how did everything change? I think a lot of things change when they see that we have been together for almost 10 years. So there is some substance there.
Yeah.
It's not something that we are building something together. Plus, they also see success as the best revenge.
Right.
In a way now, when my family and my brother and everybody's actually visited me this year. Mm-hmm. My brother came last year in June. Then my father came back after 2008 again in January this year. And then my sister just visited me. In a way, they feel like, I'm doing good.
Yeah.
And I think I have a right to make my own decision. I'm the youngest in the family. So a lot of time I'm being protected. What could happen, and I just don't know better.
Well, okay. So, Sammy, what I want to know from you is when you walked into that room and his father, the judge, laid that line on you, what did you feel? And then how long did that last?
Well, it was a flashback to being 15 and coming out to my parents.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And, I sat there and listened, and, his dad was at a point of being so upset he was disrespecting Sandeep, and I told him, you can't. You're allowed to feel any way you want because that's your right, but you're not allowed to disrespect Sandeep in this house. And so it was a very trying situation because he wasn't in his house; he was in our house. And the next day he decided he was going to try to find tickets and go back to India. So he was walking around our neighborhood. He's been a man that's had access to people doing things for him. So in India, so he didn't know how to get a ticket. So he wanted to get a ticket and go back to India. So he literally was walking around our neighborhood,
begging people to help him.
Asking people to help him go to a travel agent. Poor thing. And so
he was so angry that he was going to walk away.
Yes.
He was calling us the hellhole. Our house was a temple of hell.
America had blame. He blamed America.
The blame was on America.
Was mom feeling the same way?
My mom was a little more dramatic.
She was more dramatic.
Thought she was going to die of a heart attack at the table.
Yeah. And then when she was with our dad,
clenching her heart, and
now all of these exhortations from these two, were these their ways of trying to convince you to not do this?
Absolutely.
So their hope was, if they're dramatic enough, or if they express to you how much you're impacting them, that you'll change.
Yes.
And your answer, of course, was, well, I can't. And
I told them, I said, well, I'm being honest to who I am. You should respect that. I'm telling you. And they were like, I can't believe you're telling us. This is like a joke, and this is like an abuse in India, being called gay. is not a good thing.
Yeah.
What are we going to tip? What are we going to tell people? People are going to find out. I think my father still lives with that people are going to find out. I'm like, who cares? Whatever.
Now, in America, a fight like that with one's parents would probably be the end of the relationship for a lot of people. They would probably say, I'm not talking to you.
I must say that even though they were mean to me, at no point they were mean to Sammy.
Oh, that's sweet.
He was always called Mr. Sammy. He got all the respect. My dad was, even up till now, he lights up when he sees Sammy. He does FaceTime with him a lot.
That is really sweet.
But they were never disrespectful to him one time. Never.
But how did you bear their anger and resentment and disrespect and not abandon and not walk away from them?
No, I would tell you this much because I just didn't come out one day and I said, I'm going to come out.
Yeah.
It took me 7 years. So when I came out to them and I was 32 years old, I believe, and I knew what to expect. I just didn't know the intensity of it. So I knew. I came out to them and I had ran every scenario in my mind.
Yeah.
And I made an educated choice. I wasn't 18 or 15 as he said he came out. He just came out on a whim. I had thought about everything.
Yeah.
So all these things were expected and I just knew it, but I just didn't expect the intensity of it. The things that were said, we should have killed you when you were born and all kind of things. I knew they were being dramatic, but it hurts you.
Oh, it's horribly hurtful, yeah.
In a way, I would, and looking back at it now, as I told you before, I really am very appreciative that one set of love, as it kind of walked away, it gave me, so my focus immediately went to Sammy. All the love that was given to me and was taken away, as Sammy came into my life 2 weeks later, I just found love again. So in a way, I kind of forgot about it a little bit and moved on with the love that I was getting.
But what is amazing to me still is that you are still in a relationship with your parents.
Yes, I am, very much so, because that's very important to me.
I mean, you didn't cut them off. Like,
No.
Sam, don't you think a lot of American children,
No.
in that situation would have said, I'm not talking to you guys anymore?
Well, I think a lot of kids in that situation, even in America
or the parents
anywhere,
cut them off.
both of which. And there was a period that there were several years where
My dad didn't speak to me for 2 years.
Okay, so that did happen.
yes,
Okay.
yes, there was times of that for sure.
Yeah, and you know what? I always remember that I know this period is going to go away, but no matter what they're doing to me, I'm going to give them love and respect because they don't know any better. I mean, if somebody asked me what is my gay role model, I had none. How do you expect for a 70-year-old man to understand that he had never seen before?
Yeah.
So I understood the ignorance part of that as well, because they were not being mean for no reason. They were really scared to death about my survival in this country.
And their reputation.
And their
too.
reputation back home. I mean, it's funny that everybody knows now.
Yeah.
and I'm actually loved and respected. We are living in a time that we are loved and respected because we are gay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. The most of our business, we are loved and respected
But
because
it goes back down to our core value of love and overcoming. Love can overcome any difference, separation, or anything that society or religion or ignorance can bring on. And I think we are examples of that. And what keeps our relationship together at the core is we love each other more than anything, and we support each other, and we truly want what's best for the other person. And the other person's success is what is our success. And early on in our relationship, I was doing real estate. Sandeep was a pharmaceutical rep. I was super passionate about what I did. He wasn't. I wanted nothing more than for him to have that same passion that I had.
Yeah.
And he found it in interior design and what he does now. And it goes back to do what you love, do it really well, and everything else will fall in place. In your relationship, love really hard, compromise, don't be mad at the same time, ever.
That's the trick.
And that's really hard. But genuinely, when you want what's best for the other person, even if you're mad at the heat of the moment, you wake up in the next morning and that love is there. The anger is gone, but the love is there.
we have made a point to sleep in the same room no matter what the argument has been. It maybe once or twice we try to sleep in the other room, but the other person wakes up. So when you sleep together, no matter what the problem is, You kind of remember what the love is all about. So we tried to do that. And, that's why the extension of that is Sammy's mom lives with us now. We can be more thankful. There's a lot of love to go around. We come home and there's something to come home to.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of...
But honoring when the other person is yelling at you and asking, is this really what they're yelling about? Own what you can from that, but allow that person to be in that space. Sandeep's father was very ill. Sandeep was under a lot of stress. We got into this argument on Facebook. He was upset. He was in a very stressful place. He had a lot on his mind. This was just an outlet. I could have added more fuel to the fire. I did for a minute, and then I backed off. The time difference helped because I passed out. But waking up the next day going, that was really stupid. I need to be there to support them. So when you take your own... there's a time when you can be selfish in a relationship, but then there's a time when you need to not be selfish because the other person needs you to be there for them. And I think that you have to be an adult and be educated when you know it's time that you can be selfish and when it's time that you can't be.
Yeah.
And that's a give and take.
And also understand where you're wrong. We always find fault in the other. But one always has to see within, where is this coming from?
Well, you guys had an interesting little snippy spat right before we started the show, which I thought was really fascinating. Do you remember?
No.
It was about getting me an extension cord.
Oh.
Yes.
It was great. I was sitting here putting my gear together, and I was thinking, this is fascinating because you were clearly annoyed with each other. Each of you wanted the other one to go down and get the extension cord from the garage because you were each doing a thing of your own. And but what I loved about it, what was healthy, it seemed to me, was you were snipping at each other, but you weren't ignoring it. You weren't burying it.
And this is the way we communicate, actually. We think we banter a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of our friends get very uncomfortable around us sometimes because this is what we do. We like to banter.
Yeah.
So in a way, whatever you saw, it's just like the way we communicate sometimes.
Yeah, you didn't even remember it.
No.
But But one of you, and at some point, one of you just went and got the extension cord. I think it was you.
I did.
And
you can see who's the one who always gives up.
Is that true? No, Sammy's shaking his head. No.
No, I just happened to be standing. If I was sitting down, he would have gone down.
Yeah. And so it kind of didn't matter, but you sort of got to say your piece, and then you just went and handled the issue and came back, and now it's gone. Yeah. The letting it go is what is fascinating to me.
I think this is the way we communicate. I think we banter a lot, and I think sometimes I have also analyzed it.
Yeah. Because
a lot of our friends, we have a lot of straight friends. I think we have maybe 2 or 3 gay friends that we know. Most of our friends are straight. Uh-huh. In a way, I have analyzed it that we have become this entertaining couple to them. Huh. And I just feel like sometimes it's draining to us. And as we're growing older, we realize that.
Yeah,
but somehow we take that character, and we both love playing that part sometimes. Yeah. So I've realized that it may not be healthy because it makes the other people very uncomfortable because you're sitting in the car look at your hair, look at your shirt, blah, blah, blah. We do these things, and that's the way we communicate. But not when we are sitting. We are very intelligent human beings. We talk, and we are very, very, very insightful. But when we're around a certain group of friends, we take on this character.
Which is the
banter part,
character?
Bantering part.
Yeah. You don't.
And we feel like it's entertaining to the other person, and it's not a responsibility to entertain them.
No, right, of course.
But somehow it just takes on that part, and I'm very mindful of that now. I don't know where it came from, but I don't know why. I've analyzed that actually.
Yeah, it sounds so. It's kind of more of it's more of a show than it is.
It is
authentic.
Yes. We wouldn't talk like that, but if you weren't here, we'll be like, "Oh, we're gonna get it." I just would have gotten it, but I think you were there, so it became a little bit of an entertaining thing. That's what happened.
Interesting.
So I've analyzed it actually.
That's fascinating.
I love how you came up with that analysis. We argue all the time. That's part of our relationship. It makes people uncomfortable, but we are very passionate about what we do, and we're very vocal. We don't hold anything back. So it makes I think in today's age, people are not open. I think in general, they're afraid to be open or be honest. We are just very open, honest people. So when people are around us and they see that in our relationship, it makes them nervous sometimes.
Yeah.
Or it makes people go, "Oh, that's really cool and interesting," because they're actually seeing us
be real.
Act out and be real.
Yeah.
We have a very real relationship one minute we want to kill each other, and the next minute we're creating some masterpiece, and the next minute we go through every emotion together.
Yeah. But I think we do it a little bit more.
That's important.
We do a little bit more. We are very. I mean, we also take a lot of emotion from other people as well. The kind of work we do. But I disagree with him a little bit. I think, and as I said, I analyzed it. It comes out a little bit more when we are around a group of friends or something. It comes out a little bit more.
What's interesting, I thought I was going to end the show here in a second, so I will, but I'm really curious about this last issue, which is most people, when they're putting on a show for their friends, are putting on the perfection show, the Stepford Wives show. You guys are putting on the opposite show.
But because, whatever that's unique stands out.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So in a way, I guess, I told you I've analyzed that. Because we do, there is no such thing as perfection. We just want to be, I guess, entertaining. Because we like company of people. I think that's what it is.
Okay, well, I get your point about it. Sammy, you're still... make your point, Sammy.
Well, it's not about making a show. We're just real.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that we love about each other, and we always have, is we've been very honest. Sandeep's very blunt. Very, very blunt. I'm from the Midwest, and I'm also pretty blunt. So it's better to be blunt. That's just how we roll. So I think people, we are very open, and so especially for people that don't have experience with gay couples, people love to be around us because we're like an open book, and people are amazed all the time, like, "Oh, you're just like my husband and I. You guys have a relationship just like us. Yeah, we're two people, but you're two guys. How can that be?" Because we're two.
We heard that all the
people.
time.
We're two people, yeah.
Women and men. Just because there's gender differences doesn't mean that there's anything. We have a lot of couples where the woman is the dominant person in the relationship.
Yeah.
And the husband is the wife.
Oh, it's pretty common, actually.
And it's hilarious. We see it all the time in San Francisco. It's hilarious.
Okay, so I think I'm seeing the crossover in what you two are saying. Is this it? Is it that in a sense, you guys have had to play the role of communicating to the straight world that gay people are just fucking people? In a way,
yeah.
I think that's what people pick up. It's not a conscious decision we've made, but because we're honest and authentic and we are who we are.
Yeah.
And we have a committed relationship that looks, of course it looks like a straight relationship because that's what we grew up with.
Yeah.
We don't have other examples of really relationships. So even we have over our relationship fallen into the dominant versus submissive role in just our relationship. So we live in a very open-minded and forward-thinking area, which is wonderful. And I think that because of the roles of women and men, especially in the Bay Area with parenting and father staying home and raising kids, or just breaking down the traditional thought of how marriage should look or how relationships look, it's been, I guess, gay marriage is at the perfect time and perfect place right now.
Because it can create itself from something new, as something new.
No, people are people, I think.
That's
couples,
what I think.
People are people. People are people, but look at the traditional American family. Mom and dad are both working now. Mom doesn't stay home anymore.
Yeah.
Traditionally. So the tradition that men bring home the bacon and the women are at home in the kitchen, the 1950s, 60s.
We get asked that question a lot.
Has changed, right? Yeah. In our generation.
No, but still all our educated friends, a lot of my Indian friends, I must say, educated, a lot of people who went to the best schools, very well educated. The question comes up, not anymore, but in the beginning still, who's the man and who's the wife?
Yeah, that seems like such a 1980s question.
And we reverse that question and we ask them, who's the man and the wife now? Who does the dishes? We both do. I'm like, well, same thing.
Yeah.
So they actually question themselves, like, what did we ask now?
Because we still, in 2016, there are still lots and lots of labels that are put on relationships, both gay and straight. And they're implants. They've been implanted in our life and in our minds by our parents and by society, no matter how we were raised. And so I think in our generation, we're seeing a breakdown of those, which is great.
Yeah.
And people are
Everywhere, not just in
everywhere,
gay, yeah.
everywhere, and people are redefining what marriage and relationships look like and should look like.
Yeah,
Which is a higher consciousness of thinking,
for sure.
which I believe is love based.
Yes.
So we start asking questions
High
why
five.
these don't. It doesn't need to look like this just because it always has.
So do you guys have an ideal structure in mind for yours, or are you just letting it?
There is no ideal.
There's no ideal structure, but we know that
Yes.
we do want children. That's something we've always discussed, and we both want. That is the only structure that we have ever discussed. But we haven't discussed steps by it's our life. Every single day is a new day,
Yeah.
and that's how we are living our life. There's no bigger goal except for having children.
Oh, that's so wonderful. What a great, and that's a great note to end the show. Thank you guys so much for sharing about that.
And thank you so much for having us over.
It was
For coming over.
for having
Yes.
me over to your place. Okay, so I like to end shows with a quick game of this or that.
Okay.
You gonna play this or that?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to say this or that. And each of you is going to say what you prefer. So first one, we'll start easy. Would you rather be able to fly or breathe underwater, Sammy?
Fly.
Fly.
Both fly? Yeah. Why?
Because I don't know how to swim.
Well, this would solve that problem.
Yes.
I can fly over water. I just always wanted to fly.
Yeah, flying.
Pretty
is
cool.
Okay. Batman or Superman?
Superman.
Superman.
Batman.
Really? Why?
I don't like his red underpants.
Superman.
I just don't like that. I think it's a hideous costume.
It's the stylish.
And he's not even very well endowed, I must say.
He's not, yeah, right. It's always
What is he highlighting? I never understood that. That's one thing I never understood about Superman. What is this? Like the red underwear? I just can't. I've never seen a Superman movie in a theater.
I
Those
love
are
that
like-
he can fly through the air. Batman can too, but the webs, I love.
well. That's
his
Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's
What about
Spider-Man.
the webs.
Yeah, that's what I.
I like Batman. I like the
I
very
said
edgy
Superman,
costume.
sorry,
It's black, and I like Batman better.
Much better style. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Second to last question: enlightenment or $1 billion?
Enlightenment,
Enlightenment.
Yeah.
because you can make $1 billion with enlightenment. You can be enlightened with $1 billion.
And you probably wouldn't need it anyway.
Yeah.
And I believe in our lifetime, money as we know it is going to disappear. So
Do you really?
I do.
Yes.
You think that our economic structure as we have it
I
is going
do.
to be gone?
It's-
Yeah,
Completely.
the 2008 was just a cursor. We believe that there's something else coming. Because this
Really?
is fake,
Yes.
yeah.
You
It's
guys-
non-sustainable.
That's a whole topic. Someday I got to capture that.
That's right.
Okay.
Awesome.
Last question. If you had to either live for infinity or die in the next 5 minutes, which would it be?
Oh,
Die in the next 5 minutes.
what infinity? We do live for infinity, anyways.
And you know where I come
There's
from,
no such thing as dying.
and I'll tell you why. Because where I come from, in the religion that I grew up in, Hinduism, it's all about karma and rebirth. So
Yeah.
this life is just a small cycle in the infinity to begin with.
Is that how you mean it too when you say that, Sammy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it kind of doesn't matter which one you
yes.
choose.
Exactly.
Because in a way that I feel like, I believe that I've been with him in the past 7 lifetimes. In many ways, love could not be between husband and husband or husband and wife. That's what people think. It could be mother and son, brother and brother. I feel like when I met him the first day, I just felt this connection that I felt very, very comfortable.
Yeah.
So I believe that I could die next minute because I believe there's life after death.
And you'll be with him next time.
Could be.
That's right.
Well, guys, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you both so much.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Well, that's it for our interview with Sammy and Sandeep, folks. Thanks for listening, and happy Thanksgiving. I've been reflecting on this episode because we're in the midst of the holidays. Aubrey and I are headed home to see my father on the other side of the country, and those visits can be a little awkward. And I know I'm not alone in experiencing a bit of discomfort when visiting family on the holidays. And so, my question is always, why do we bother? If it can be so challenging to spend time with family, what's so compelling about doing it? And the answer, of course, is love. And I don't often talk about love on the show because none of us really knows what it means or can define it. But our guests today go farther in explaining it than most, and they do so with their behavior. Most of my listeners would probably consider Sandeep's family's response to his coming out of the closet to, well, be challenging at the very least. And maybe some of us would have broken ties with that family or stopped talking to them for a while. But Sandeep knew what his family's response was going to be before he came out. And he saw something else in how they were reacting. Sandeep saw that, in fact, his family loved him, that their behavior was the result of both fear for him and for themselves, and that this fear was based in some very real evidence from their life experience. Now, his family was expressing that love in a way that was very hurtful and was arguably extremely inappropriate, but it was the best that they knew how to do. And Sandeep chose to see the love rather than the hate. That is his strength. That's why they came around, and that's why they're a family today. I, for one, plan to take that lesson home with me this year, and I hope we can all do so. If you'd like to learn more about Sammy and Sandeep, you can find their website at renovationanddesign.com. That's the business that they own together, and I'll put a link to it in our show notes. And be sure to check out our sponsors for today's episode, Knock Knock, makers of the Fill in the Love collection of fill-in-the-blank journals, postcards, and letters that you can use to express your love to anyone. You can find their website at knockknockstuff.com. Send some love with Fill in the Love from Knock Knock. And as an aside, I just want to say thanks a lot, Knock Knock, for supporting us. It really makes a big difference. I'm honest when I say that I like your products, and I really do appreciate your being our first sponsor. It means a lot to me personally, and it means a lot for the sustainability of the show. Happy holidays. If you like our show, please consider supporting our Patreon campaign. Even with our new sponsors, we still have a long ways to go to sustainability, so every penny makes a difference. You can find our campaign at patreon.com/together. If you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like to be on the show, please reach out to us via one of our platforms. You can find our website at www.together.guide. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/togethershow. Twitter and Instagram are both at together_show, or you can email me at host@together.guide. That's all for today, folks. Talk to you on Monday.